Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the sprint review demo session. Um, so I was actually going to start with a quick board check just to make sure that we were all up to date.
Sure, why don't you take over the screen then?
Let me just do that really quick. And just make sure that that all the tickets are in the right place, that all of these tickets are still in process, nothing is, or if there's anything that needs to be moved to deploy or closed, you could let me know.
I think that the top ticket 257, enable continuous delivery, can be closed.
Okay, excellent.
I think that was waiting on the review deploys, which are now done.
Okay, great. So yes, also, thinking about this in terms of what we're demoing today, it looks like most of the things are like not totally finished. So just double checking that. And so after
you can move 455 over to done. I got what I was supposed to get done.
455 preparation for UD. Okay, excellent. Okay. Anything else?
Well, for 454, the export her format feature, that's one have to wait until the merge request is merged, and then
okay.
It's going to be closed.
Okay, great. Anything else on the board? Okay, so immediately after this meeting, I'll go ahead and move everything into Sprint 11. So we'll be seeing all of these things as well as the things for Sprint 11. All right, so, and if there are any other things, go ahead and update the board. All right, so if you want to go ahead, Alex, with your demo.
All right, so screen share. Am I still there?
You are.
Okay, it said I've been signed out because I was signed on another device because I was trying to pull up my laptop in case I need to do a local ingest. So hopefully that doesn't kick me out. So this is our continuous deployment pipeline. So whenever a merge request is opened on the mono repo, it will do a bunch of automated tests. And if those tests pass, what we now have done, thanks to Tom Johnson, is actually deploy a review instance of the application onto a temporary server so we can actually go in and look and do some manual QA. So it first builds a Docker image of the object. It runs some basic code checks to make sure the code is well formed and formatted. It runs the tests we've written for it, and then it actually does the deploy. And that's what we're on right now, waiting for it to wrap up. So I was hoping that it would have finished by the time you did your demo, but it hasn't yet. So my thinking now is I should do a local ingest demo. And then if this completes by that time, try and do a ingest on, because this is more or less what this production infrastructure is going to be like. So this is kind of the last test, because it's one thing to ingest shape files on my local machine in my development environment. It's another to actually get it on the real distributed infrastructure. So sorry?
Did you want me to go through my diagram first then?
Oh, please do, yes.
Okay, that maybe gives it a little more time. Okay, so one of the things we did this sprint. Let me see, where do I? Oh, there it is. Okay, now you should be able to see it. You can see the diagram, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, great. So one of the things we did was to start to diagram this out so we can figure out what's going on, what we need to do, and develop a workflow. And so this is really a two-part workflow. The first part is what we need to do to get all of the data and metadata prepared for ingest. And then the second part is what actually happens as part of the ingest. And so, we're starting with, in this case, I'm just dealing with shape files. And so, we're starting with a shape file, whatever ancillary files come with it. And we're running through this process to create metadata. We have a document that guides the instructions for that. And then we run through a validation. And then if it's valid, the shape file has the updated metadata in it. And we generate an XML file. And then we zip up basically that ISO 19139 XML file with the shape file and the ancillary files. And so we end up with the zip file. And again, this process, we'll be revisiting this and seeing if there's things we need to change. And as we have other object types, then it'll change according to the object type as well. So then right now, and this is as best as I understand it, so we have that zip file. The ISO 19139, the metadata XML file is then manually parsed using XPath that creates this GeoBlacklight solar JSON file. And then the whole zip file is registered into GeoServer. And what I'm not sure about is how that identity within GeoServer is put into the JSON. If you're adding that manually right now, or if that's part of an automated process. I know that there's a lot of stuff that happens within GeoBlacklight. Actually, do you know that answer off the top of your head, Alex?
Sorry, the identity. Do you mean the ID?
Yeah, like when you stick it into GeoServer, I understand that it gets an ID.
Right. So currently, because we don't have all the easy ID integration done, GeoServer generates an ID based on the file name of the shape file. And so when we make the corresponding JSON file for GeoBlacklight, we make sure to use the file name so that they match, so that they can that GeoBlacklight can know what to pull out of GeoServer. So
as of now, that's the manual process.
More or less. I mean, the importer, we wrote it so that it extracts the file name and uses that automatically. So it's something we'll have to go in and change in the code once we change to EasyID, but it's not something we don't have to like copy and paste, say, the file name each time. That's part of the automated importer.
Okay, yeah. And again, I'm happy to update or change this in any way that makes it more clear as to how that ingest is working. And then just to show a diagram of possible future way of doing this. So one thing would be, instead of ingesting the zip file directly into GeoServer, the zip file would be put into some sort of DAMs, some sort of permanent or longer term storage, and then we can from that location generate an ARC for that location that can be put into the JSON as a registered permanent ID. I also asked Elliot at Princeton. I had heard that they were creating these derivatives, and I wasn't really sure why. And it turns out that the way we have it designed, where we're just putting the zip file directly into GeoServer, that's in a projection. GeoBlacklight needs it in a different projection than that. And so whenever GeoBlacklight needs that different projection, it has to do that on the fly. And so what Princeton suggests is that we actually, in advance of this ingest, is to reproject a derivative. This isn't the main copy that goes into the dam. So this is a derivative is created that's projected in the projection that GeoBlacklight needs, so it can more easily read that. So that's a piece we could add later. So then what's going into GeoServer then is that derivative, and that's what GeoBlacklight is using for display and for all those types of things. And then when you click the button to download the original shapefile, then it's grabbing it from the dams based on this location. Any questions about that? Yeah, and again, this is a work in progress, so we can keep updating this diagram as we figure these things out.
I'm ready to do a local ingest if.
Excellent. So I will stop sharing and give it back to you.
So let me. Okay, so here's so right now this is just a command line interface. Because this is an MVP, we are just doing it as kind of quick and dirty as we can. So this is not a polished interface where the librarians can upload zip files. This is something right now that the developers are going to have to do until we figure out how we want to kind of have a final version. We were originally going to kind of do some share code with either Stanford's GeoCombine application or Princeton's Figgy importer. For now, we decided to get an initial MVP. We were just going to write our own parser to take the shapefile and import it into Shoreline. And then once we get that done, we'll figure out how best to kind of engage with the community and hopefully not continue reinventing the wheel in this area. So for now, this is what we have. And Tom supplied us with some sample shape files. And so we wrote what's called a rake task. It's part of the Rails infrastructure that you just show it the path to the zip file. It will import it into GeoServer, like we said, and then extract kind of the minimal fields that we identified for the MVP, the minimal metadata fields, make a compatible JSON document for GeoBlacklight and pass it over there. So let's see. I think I need this. So there's a few command line options that we use. So right now we can't, there are a few required fields like provenance and access that we can't extract from the metadata. And so these are ones that we just set as environment variables that the importer will read. And so when it comes to a field that it can't parse out of the XML, like what's the institution providing this object, it'll have that information at hand. So we're setting the institution as Santa Barbara. The access can either be public or restricted. Right now we're doing public. And then that's the path to the zip file. So with any luck, because I renamed it because that should work. Oh, right. I remember what I did. Break, shoreline, publish.
So are you running this on a local machine and it's uploading to the server?
No. Right now, this is entirely local because our review deployment was still running, and it actually looks like it just failed. So
Oh, yeah, I see the local host 8080.
I'm poking at what's going on with the deployment.
okay. So yeah. So there you see that's that bit of kind of debugging text that got spat out includes the JSON that it gave to GeoBlacklight. So that's looking good. We have, I think, the required fields. So let's check first that the object was created in GeoServer. And it was, good. So that was the lakes object. So it got into GeoServer, so that's step one. And here is the completely empty GeoBlacklight, but now let's reload. And we have an object from UC Santa Barbara there. It's got the, oh, actually, I want to go back here to the search results. So one of the GeoBlacklight's features is that it has a nice way of seeing the bounding area of the objects, so you can kind of search by region. And so it was able to extract all of the coordinates and display them correctly on the search results page. And now we have, here's the kind of, this is the minimal data we decided was necessary for the MVP. So the title, authors, description, the collection. Soon we'll have this be linkable into, so you can search by collection as well. Place, subject, and the holder. And then there's the leaflet version of the data and the export format. So this on the side here, this is what is enabled by the teaching GeoBlacklight how to get to GeoServer. Prior, we just had this basic metadata, but now we have. I think all this detail in the leaflet view is new too. Now that it can talk to GeoServer and pull more data as needed. But let's export. Oh, it's not clicking there. So, so it's supposed to have a little pop-up saying your download is ready. It is not yet.
Alex, did you set the environment variable for the download path?
No, I did not. So okay, so I think that was something I should have and forgot to do. Does it need to be? Oh, let's see. Yeah, I may not have. Okay, so let's restart the server. Okay, one other idea. So let's try importing another object. This time, let's get the rivers one. So 04 rivers. And then I'm going to add this downloads variable because I think it doesn't know where to put the shapefile. So we'll try that. Mm-hmm. We have rivers now. Let's see if there's any obvious errors in the...
I thought we used the environment like Geo Blacklight download path.
Oh, right. We did rename it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me unshare screen while I take a quick debugging trip. And then, Tom, do you have anything you can talk about in the meantime?
Is that directed at me or Tom Brittenbacher?
Good question.
I was just going to say, I don't really have anything else. Tom, if you do.
I don't. I think the main thing that I emphasize is that the deployment infrastructure that you saw at the beginning of this process is also the deployment infrastructure that we're using for the staging instance, which if we can get Alex's current merge request merged, we'll go ahead and do a manual load the way that she's just been showing of as much data as we can reasonably push through quickly. And then it's also the infrastructure that we'll use for production deploys. So I'm hoping that production deploy a production UCSB instance will be up very rapidly. Thor, I know that we need to touch base about how best Thor and Ron about how best to duplicate the current auto deploys for UCSD. I think that there should be really minimal work involved in making that happen.
Cool.
I had a question for Tom Brittenbacher. When you were showing the metadata workflow before, there was some steps that happened prior to ingest, sort of to prepare things, and I'm wondering, is that currently a manual process? And if so, do we have plans or ideas about how to automate that? Or is it sort of individualized for depending on the collection and things like that?
It's a hybrid. You can do some automation to create templates, and you start with the template. There's also a lot of information that's generated automatically. This is all created in Arc Catalog, which is one of the Esri products within the Esri ArcGIS suite. And so one of the things it can do is it can extract out bounding boxes and file types and a lot of that type of information into the metadata so that we don't have to enter that stuff by hand. Any of the things like agency name, any of the like if we're doing a set of like say 30 shape files from the same collection, all the information that's in common can be done through a template in the beginning, and then we just would have to go in and manually change those things that differ from one shape file to the next. So it's a hybrid to do that. There's also, I haven't done it, but I know that there are ways that we can also do some Python scripting to do some other populating, even if it's a little more manual. I mean, in terms of a little more customized, I should say, not manual. That we can do some of that stuff with Python, so we're not having to go in and type all of this stuff out every single time. Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
And it's all, and we have, right now we have documents that explains that whole process. So I mean, yes, we'll be adapting it with new things, but right now it's ready to go in the sense that I could hand this workflow to somebody and they could duplicate it.
When UCSD deploys to production, do we need to build this, or will we just use the Helm chart, which you create and put in a repository, and maybe we have to set some environment variables?
The only thing that we should need to do is add jobs that tweak the environment variables. So there are two things that I expect to need to change for the UCSD deployment. One is the environment variable that sets the theme, and the other is the GitLab environment, which I think that your cluster is not configured as a GitLab environment at this point. So that's the big step. But if Helm's pointing in the right place, then we should be all set.
And the theme is settable through the Rancher interface. So if that's how you deploy it, there's no need for any changes other than typing in UCSD instead of UCSB.
Right. That's what I would picture doing. That we would launch it in Rancher, and yeah, maybe have to set an environment, and then I think from there we can just, there's usually if things get updated in the repository, then it just tells you upgrade. You click that button and it
exactly.
Thor, that's an option that you have, but the infrastructure that we've got in place for UCSB provides continuous deployment through the pipeline. And I expect that that's how we'll deploy to prod too.
Oh, so that's why our Rancher has to be, I don't know, GitLab aware. GitLab has to be aware of our Rancher. Okay, gotcha.
GitLab has to be aware of your Kubernetes cluster.
Right.
I think, so it's up to you about whether you want to do that, but I think the push button prod deploy through GitLab is pretty attractive. So maybe we can talk about that and whether that's something you all want.
We definitely want that.
Very cool. Yeah, I was muted earlier, but we do have this working now. Vivian corrected me about the correct setting for where these generated shapefiles go, because these aren't the originals. Like Tom was saying, they're reprojected, and so they need to be stored in a separate cache directory so that they don't have to be regenerated each time the user wants them. So I hadn't set the right cache directory, so that's why it wasn't working before, but now it is. And so now you can download a shapefile, and you can also download these other formats as well. I think Tom mentioned that we in the future will like to actually have a direct link to the original shapefile. That depends on where kind of where we end up storing them, what we do for the dams. But in the meantime, this is a good first step. So that, unfortunately, we couldn't do it on the kind of the AWS infrastructure. We had to do it locally, but as you can see, it is working, and it's just a matter of configuring it correctly with the staging and production infrastructure. Then once we get that working, we're in good shape.
Folks, that is awesome. That is really cool.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Cool.
That's amazing. You got data into it, it looks great, and you got it back out. That's like, wow.
Exciting.
There's hope.
It's very exciting. Well done.
Yes, wonderful. Yes, this is so great to see.
And to your point, Tom B, Tom Britton, we'll just have to write some extra code in the back end to reduce the onerous, manual stuff, but that's doable. We do that all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And so, Alex, just one quick question on that. And when you uploaded, it said finally your file is available for download. Is that will a developer or let's say someone on our team have to X that out, or the next time anyone refreshes that message goes away?
It'll go away. Yeah.
I figured so. I just.
And then the next time you click it, it'll have been already generated, so it'll come up immediately. There won't even be that little second delay of when it's doing the fetch.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. Because Amy and I can do our next step, which is to go back through the gap analysis, and I think there are going to be some tickets that are going to go away automatically now. So that's exciting. Great.
So it's really nice to see it all end to end too, all the way from the metadata all the way through to the end user interface. So that's great.
Yeah.
The cat's happy too.
So is there anything else that anybody has been working on this sprint that they'd like to demonstrate? Or anything anybody wants to share about what they've been working on?
Not I.
I'm just glancing back at the board to see if there are any other.
We always have the best act as the closing act, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like we've had our platform architecture discussions. I mean, I realize that those will continue on, but I think that's great that we've had those. And yeah, a lot of work in the background to get that stuff to work. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. So are there any other last comments? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.